I read 21 books in quarter 2 of this year, April, May, June. Let's talk about them. I also had 4 DNFs, did not finish. Got some 5 stars. I've got quite a few audiobooks. Let me tell you my thoughts. So in quarter 1, I was devouring the Bridge Kingdom series. This is book 5 of that series, The Twisted Throne. The way this series is structured, they're over here on my shelf. The way this series is structured is separate duologies. So the first 2 are about Lara and Aaron, second 2 are about Zara and Karis, and this book and the next, which isn't out yet, is about Anna and James. This one had a little bit less romance than the other one so far, but these books have me hooked. The plot, the political scheming is next level. I've been intrigued about her character since we met her in the first couple books, and I was so excited to finally get some of her story. And I cannot wait for the final book in this series. And I'm going to be sad when it's over, and I'm probably going to reread it again. So good. So good. Let's keep the fantasy vibes going. For the Bookish podcast, we did Tress of the Emerald Sea by Brandon Sanderson. This was so fun. My first Brandon Sanderson, he's been on my list for a long time, but I've been a little bit intimidated to start because they feel like a commitment. Some of his books are like, this feels like a really great place to start. It's a standalone. It is set in the Cosmere, which is a world of his. I don't know anything else about it except for what I've learned from this. Really great place to start. Great on audio. I did mostly read it physically. So I've never read anything like this. So whimsical, so fun. It felt like an adventure, like almost like a fairy tale. The characters, the writing was beautiful. The world building was incredible. So unique, so fun. Highly recommend. Now for some fantasy that I don't recommend. We read The Heartless Hunter for the podcast. It's book 1 of a 2-book series, and it was not good. Now, don't let that put you off entirely, because for my co-host, Kendra, for her, it was more of like this is bad, but I'm enjoying myself. For me, it was just bad. It was 100% predictable. The writing was bad. The characters were bad. It was an intriguing concept. We had like witch versus witch hunter. It's got an enemies to lovers kind of setup, but it's hard to do enemies to lovers well when one enemy genuinely wants to kill the other and the other one's like, but he's hot. Also, our main character is this Crimson Moth, like rebellious vigilante, and she's like in disguise for these society parties and whatever. But we never got to see her do the cool vigilante stuff. So instead, we only got her like shallow society persona, and I was lacking her motivation. It's very YA, which is not always a bad thing, but in this case, I was like, ugh. Like I was eye rolling at sometimes she'd make statements like, why doesn't he like me? Like that kind of energy. I'm like, you are supposed to be this badass female character, and yet you're over here like, he hasn't talked to me in 3 days. Get over yourself. I didn't like it. It was bad. I don't recommend. Now for this next one, Silver Elite by Dani Francis. This for me was more of like it's bad, but I'm having a good time. This was not much better. There's been discussion online as to whether or not this book is written by AI, because we don't know who Dani Francis is. There's a lot of discussion and debate about what it is, who they are. It's a pen name. Perhaps it's an author who is established elsewhere and is breaking into the fantasy genre. The writing was not great. I was, however, entertained. It is not at all what people are calling it. People are calling this book Katniss for adults, Hunger Games meets Divergent, Hunger Games meets Fourth Wing, dystopian with spice. You tell me all of that. You've set the bar up here. Let's stop doing that, because this, okay, dystopia where? If you tell me something's dystopian, you have to have excellent world building. The political backdrop of your story has to be a character in itself. The backdrop of this story, the world building in this story is nearly non-existent. It's like dystopia vibes. World building was so underwhelming. This is more accurately described as a military romance than it is a dystopian fantasy by any means. And don't even get me started on the romance. Dare I say predatory, concerning, red flags everywhere. There's a twist towards the end of this book that was completely predictable. I don't know how many books are going to be in this series, but I won't be reading them. I don't recommend. Hi, Oats. We've got a friend. You want to hear about my books? This is my oldest, Oats. Be gone. Okay, one more fantasy for the quarter, and that was A Fate Inked in Blood by Danielle Jensen, same author as the Bridge Kingdom series. So I had high hopes. And this was unique, but I need the second book to really like round out how I feel about the series as a whole. It's only a 2-book series. It's a Norse Viking inspired like fantasy, which was something I haven't read before, and I'm not sure if I'm totally into it, to be honest. It took a little bit more brain power for me to read because they're introducing like these concepts and these gods that I was like not generally familiar with. So I kept having to like remember who was who and what did what. It was a little bit darker than I expected, but I didn't mind it. The plot dragged a little bit in the middle, but the last 20% was like action packed. The romance, I'm gonna need to see how it develops in the second book because I'm very intrigued to see where our characters can go, but I'm not like 100% sold on them yet. I gave it like a 3.5. It's got a little bit of spice. I think the world building and the plot are like the strong points here. Stay tuned for Q3 because I have already read the second book. Spoilers. So I'll be giving my thoughts on the series as a whole. That's it for fantasy this quarter. Let's get into my audiobooks. Let's talk about an audiobook, my only like horror read of the quarter, which is not a genre I read typically, but my sister recommended this to me, and I felt like I was in the mood for something maybe a little scary. And that was The September House by Carissa Orlando. I think this is a debut. I could be wrong. The audiobook was fun. This book was a lot like sillier and campier than I expected it to be. I thought I was going to be like really spooky and scared, and it was like creepy, like gory, but in like a silly way. It really threw me off, honestly. The audiobook was fun to listen to. The character, our main character, is this old lady who inherits this like weird house. And I had a fun time listening to it. But like looking back, I don't know if I really liked it. I don't think I would like read another one like it. The ending was kind of a disappointment, but it was definitely unique. And I'm glad I read it. So do with that information what you will. Another audiobook I did, which I don't really know how to categorize genre-wise, is Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. This has been on everybody's list. I swear I've seen it everywhere. People have recommended it to me. And I think it's either like a you love it or you hate it kind of read. So I was like, all right, I have to find out. That's the thing about me is if something's popular, if something's polarizing, I need to know how I feel about it so that I can like pick a side. And I fall right in the middle, unfortunately. It's a really unique book. It's about these two video game designers who have this like decades-long friendship and a little bit of a like will they, won't they. The storytelling is what's really unique about it. There's a lot of like video game storytelling aspects where some of it feels like you're in the game and some of it flashes back and forth in time. The reason I have such mixed feelings about it is because I had really struggled with connecting with the characters. I love an unlikable, flawed character, but I found myself questioning how these two main characters could even like be friends. Like they sucked as friends. And I don't really feel like through the decades long story that I read, they really grew or changed very much. More like just time passed. So that was frustrating. I did, however, come away with a new appreciation for video game design, something I was not at all interested in. And the thing that really put me off about this book for so long is I was like, I don't know, I'm not really a gamer. I don't really whatever. But that was probably the most interesting part of the story. The plot took like a weird left turn, maybe 65% of the way in that I was not really on board with, but that's how I ended up on like a 3. Some like, some dislike. I recommend to specific people who I think would be interested in it. Another kind of general fiction read is probably one of my top reads of the year, and that's A Man Called UVA by Fredrik Backman. Or you might say this is A Man Called Ove. If you've listened to the audiobook, his name is Uva. This book deserves all of its flowers. Everyone who recommends this book, you are correct. This book had me sobbing. See here. I think about this book constantly. Absolutely touched my heart, soul. Will recommend forever and ever. If you want a heartwarming read that's funny, that'll make you cry, read this immediately, please. I love it so much. Another audiobook this quarter was The Measure by Nikki Erlick. Another one that has been recommended to me and I should have read sooner because this was so interesting, so thought-provoking. I still think about it. A really great conversation starter, great book club book. The concept of the story is one day everybody wakes up with a box on their front door and inside it is a string, and the length of the string determines the length of your life. And so the question becomes like, will you open it? Do you want to know? Is it true? If you knew when you were going to die, like, how would you live your life? Just very interesting. There's an aspect of like, how does this shape society and government and politics? People separate themselves into groups, and it's just all around super, super interesting. And I really enjoyed listening to it. Now, another one that I did not enjoy listening to, but that doesn't mean it's a bad book, was our nonfiction for the quarter for my in-person book club, and that was A Fever in the Heartland, the Ku Klux Klan's plot to take over America, and the woman who stopped them. Disturbing, horrific, awful, awful story. True. A really hard listen. But incredibly educational, especially during this like 1920s era that for me, the most I'm familiar with is like, yes, Prohibition, Great Gatsby, whatever. Learning a lot more about some of the other things that were going on in the 1920s, horrendous. I think it was really well written. I don't really write nonfiction because I don't really know how to. I recommend if you're interested in learning a little bit about our country's history, but be warned, it's a frightening read. One more fiction read of the quarter, and then we'll get into all my romance for the quarter. We read The Lonely Hearts Book Club by Lucy Gilmore. Now, oddly enough, so we read this, and then we read A Man Called UVA for the podcast, and this book has been compared to this one. And let me tell you right now, this cannot hold a candle to Fredrik Backman. This is a hint of the level of heartwarmingness that's in A Man Called UVA. This is fine. It's not a super unique concept. It's about, a group of unlikely people who come together and learn the power of friendship. Like, the potential was there, but the characters were underdeveloped. The plot was underdeveloped. And overall, it was just a miss. And whatever you do not listen to the audiobook. The narrator was bad. I tried to listen to it. Ooh, no. Pass on this one. Okay, before we get into my romances for the quarter, which is always like my biggest genre, let me talk about the DNFs, the did not finishes for the quarter. A nonfiction was Careless People. This was supposed to be like a behind the scenes sordid details of a former Facebook exec sharing some like crazy stories from Facebook headquarters. And the hype around this book was that Facebook has actually tried to shut down its production. And actually, I think they won a suit that says she can't promote the book. She can put out the book, but she can't promote the book. So it's really been a word of mouth hit. And I tried to listen to this, but the storytelling was so bad. Like, it dragged. It was like, what does this have anything to do with anything? It was really hard to listen to someone who is complicit in a lot of the stories she's telling, pretend that she's like absolutely absolved of any responsibility. I had a really hard time with it. I ended up DNFing because I'm interested in the stories, but not the way she was telling them. And I'd rather watch it as like a docuseries. And I'm sure they'll make one at some point. So I'm going to wait for that. Then I actually had 3 romance DNFs this quarter. The first was a book called Cash by Jessica Peterson. This is my first by this author. I might give her another try, but this was just your standard city girl inherits a farm and falls in love with the grumpy farm ranch hand. Like, there was nothing unique about it. I wasn't feeling connected to the characters. I got probably 70% of the way in and was like, I don't really care anymore. If you're gonna do a Hallmark concept, you gotta give me good characters. You gotta give me something relatable. You gotta give me excellent banter, spice. This gave me nothing. Speaking of something else that gave me nothing, Between Friends and Lovers. I really wanted to like this. It's been on my list for a while. And as much as it looks and feels like it's going to be a love triangle, it's more like a girl who finds out the guy she's had unrequited feelings towards her whole life is actually just a jerk. And she's jumping into another relationship too soon. I wasn't really interested in that story. The 2 characters actually pursuing a relationship in this story had a lot to work through. Needed to go through some therapy. Needed to do some self-discovery, and I wasn't really interested in doing that with them. I was like, come back to me when you've done that work. I thought I was going to love it. Like, the writing style grabbed me right away. I was really liking our female main character, but then the story lost me. It did. So that was a DNF, unfortunately. And my final DNF for the quarter is a big disappointment. If you watch my quarter 1 recap, I was flying through the DC Stars series by Chelsea Curto. It's a hockey romance series, and this is book 4 of the series called Hatfrick. And I was very much anticipating this read, very, very excited about it. And it did not hit the same. And I felt crazy for DNFing it, honestly. The potential was there, but it almost felt a little rushed. Like, I didn't connect with, what is her name? Lexi and something else, Riley. See, I can't even remember their names as much as I can the first three. I just didn't connect with them the same. I like usually in these interconnected romance series, you get a little glimpse of the characters in the previous books, and then you get to the book and you're like, yay, I can't wait to like unpack and learn why they are the way they are and everything about who they are. But we weren't really unpacking it. We weren't really getting there. Instead, it just felt like these two went from friends to friends with benefits really fast. And I needed them to do a little bit more internal growth first. There's a lot of spice in this book, which is great. But for me, if I'm going to enjoy it, I have to feel the connection. I have to feel like the intimacy, right? I don't just want smut for smut's sake. I need love. I need the connection. I need to feel like they're real people, not just like two hot people having a good time, you know? So I did DNF it. I was really, really bummed. I will still continue with the series. Maybe I'll pick it up again, but that one was a miss. So those are my DNFs for the quarter. Let's get into my romance reads. I did read even more Chelsea Curto. She has a non-hockey romance series. It's still kind of sports adjacent. It's called Love Through a Lens. They're all like camera related. There's 4 books in the series: Camera Chemistry, Caught on Camera, Behind the Camera, and Off Camera. Camera Chemistry was almost like a novella. It was like 200, 250 pages, pretty quick, which for that short of a book, I was okay with it being a little insta-lovey. I'd prefer it to be longer so that I can really connect with the characters, obviously, but I wasn't mad about it. I was just really excited to get to the rest of the series, because the reason I went back to the series is because in the DC Stars hockey series, there's a character whose story is a part of this camera series. So I really just needed to get to Maven's story. And this first book was actually about Maven's dad. So fast forward from that, we go from Camera Chemistry to Caught on Camera, Friends to Fake Dating to Lovers. It was cute. There was a lot of chemistry, a lot of banter. It kind of lost their momentum a little bit because they realized they were in love with each other like really quickly, which is great. Sometimes Friends to Lovers, they take way too long to figure it out, but it like sort of lost momentum a little bit. Off Camera was book 3. I was just working my way towards Maven's story. Off Camera was really fun because it was rival social media managers. So social media managers for rival sports teams. And that provided a really unique, like banter, unique competitive aspect. As a whole, the Love Through a Lens series was not quite hitting the same as the DC Stars series for me, but I was still really liking it. Like, great palate cleansers. I'll pick up anything Chelsea Curto reads. I can guarantee like I'm gonna have a good time. It might not be a 5-star, but it's not gonna be a DNF. Oops, I did these out of order. Maven is not last. She's third. The rival social media managers one is last. So Behind the Camera is third, and this is Maven and Dallas's story, and we get to explore more of them in the DC Stars series. So this one was like especially fun to read. Maven is a NFL photographer. Dallas is a kicker. He's also a single dad. I do love me a single dad romance, and this was just everything I wanted it to be. It was delicious. Definitely my favorite of the series. As a whole, I would recommend it, but I'm partial to DC Stars. So I'm finally through most of Chelsea Curto's backlist. Moving on to another interconnected romance series, I finished up Wild and Wrangled, which is book 4 and the last of the Rebel Blue Ranch series. This is a cowboy romance series. And again, I was really looking forward to this one, but it didn't quite hit the same as the first 3. This is a second chance romance, so we get some fun flashbacks to them in their teenage years, which I enjoyed. I love a little dual timeline situation. But there was a 3rd act breakup in this that drove me crazy and really like kind of ruined it for me. It just felt so dumb. While I flew through this book, I think I read it in a day and a half. It's probably my least favorite of the series. And ultimately, Cam and Dusty are like pretty forgettable to me. Sorry. Now, for something unforgettable, Liz Tomforty wrote the final book in the Windy City series. And boy, oh boy, did it deliver. Rewind It Back is Rio and Hallie's story, and it was perfect. It was perfect. It was 5 stars. I laughed. I cried. I love these characters so much. The best part about this story is that it features everybody from the first 4, and like just the found family of all 10 of these characters, all 5 of these couples, is just cherry on top. It's perfect. Second chance romance is sometimes hard to please for me, but this one, you can't read this without reading the first 4. It just won't hit the same, but this is easily one of my top recommended romance series. If you're gonna read a sports romance series, interconnected standalones, make it the Windy City series. This will rip your heart out and put it back together all at the same time. I can't wait to reread these. I will be rereading them soon. List Tom 40 never misses. I've got another interconnected standalone series that I've been reading. Another highly anticipated release of this year, and that was Gloves Off by Stephanie Archer. And I ate it up. I ate it up. I've been waiting for these characters since book 1, Marriage of Convenience, Dislike to Love. The banter, incredible. The chemistry, off the charts. I devoured this book in like 10 hours. I wanted to savor it, but it was just too good. I stayed up till 2 a.m. reading it. Every new layer that we got to these characters made me love them even more. Again, I recommend starting at the beginning of the series for the best effect, but Georgia and Alexi, I love them. Another favorite romance author of mine, Stephanie Archer. She does it. She does it well. Okay, I've got 3 more romances to share. The first is Savor It by Tarah DeWitt. I've read a few books by her, and I'm never disappointed with them. They're just not like top tier. They're good, great even, but not excellent. I liked this one. There was something missing, especially with the plot in this. The setup had me thinking it was going to go a certain way, and then we didn't do that, and I was kind of disappointed. It's a good summer read. Nothing life-changing. Also not life-changing. Another disappointment for my year, and a highly anticipated release that I was let down by, was the new Emily Henry, Great Big Beautiful Life. The romance really took a backseat in this one, which is not always a bad thing. If you're going to read it, go into that with the expectations. It leans a little bit more fiction, women's fiction, than romance. But it's a little bit too similar to Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. The story is these 2 rival journalists who are fighting to write a memoir for this like famous Hollywood celebrity. And so it's learning her story at the same time that these journalists are like falling in love with each other. I've read that story before. I wasn't interested in Margaret's story, that our celebrity. I found it to be a little bit confusing. It was boring. And for that to be like a really big portion of the plot, to not connect with that was difficult. And then the romance between our other 2 characters felt really fast, really forced. In fact, I skipped the spicy scenes in this story, which I rarely do, because it felt really uncomfortable. I felt nothing between these 2. They threw out "I love you," and I was like, huh? Really? That's not how you want to feel. This was a letdown. I've seen the way that other people talk about this book, and I wish I could love it the way that they did, but it did not hit home for me. This is the lowest I've ever rated an Emily Henry book. I give it a 2. And my last romance for the quarter, or my last read for the quarter, was The Love of My Afterlife. I did this on audio. It was fun on audio. And this was really fun and unique. I was very intrigued by the premise. I thought the characters were really fun. Our female main character was kind of a bitch, but I appreciated that the characters around her were like refusing to accept that. Like they knew she could grow and had potential, and they were like, get over it. It had me laughing. I flew through it. I would recommend. Ooh, okay. So that's it for the quarter. If you've read any of these, I'd love to know your thoughts. If you missed quarter 1, go back and watch that. If you want full-length discussions for some of these books, check out Bookish with 2Ks, my podcast with my friend Kendra. Happy reading.